Imagine opening your email to find years of history deleted. Only a single email remains. A ransomware request for $2 million. You think to yourself, how could this happen to me? You see, there's two types of companies. Those that have been hacked and those that will be hacked. The weight of responsibility comes crashing down on you. It's the sort of responsibility you feel when your family is craving a delicious pizza. You finally open the box only to find the most cringeworthy topping that you mistakenly ordered. Join Pineapple on Pizza podcast as John and George, along with guest executives, discuss the most common and craziest cybersecurity risks, followed by actionable tips and strategies that can be implemented to protect your cyber risk pie. Pineapple on Pizza is hosted by Omnistruck.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Pineapple on Pizza. Today, we have an amazing guest who is the Chief Excitement Officer of P3ID Technologies. He's a document master, animal enthusiast. Welcome to Kevin Neal.
Thanks, John. So excited to be here.
We're excited to have you.
Thanks, George.
So we're going to jump right in here and ask our leading question, which is, if cyber risk was a pizza and the frameworks are the crust, what's the riskiest topping you've seen, and what topping would you equate that to?
Oh, this is a great question. Like, you guys framed this very nice with Pineapple on Pizza. So I'd say cybersecurity is anchovies. And why anchovies is that I love a nice crust, and I love pepperoni, and I love pineapples on pizza, but I don't care for anchovies so much. And that the analogy I like to draw, and I'll talk about a lot of analogies and draw parallels, is that some people like anchovies, but oftentimes people don't like them and they want to avoid it, and it's not a fun thing. And I think that's cybersecurity. Usually people want, if you're a worker bee, you want to do your work. If you're a manager, you want to manage the people. And like, dealing with cybersecurity is like something I don't want to deal with. I don't want to have it. But I have to, right? So you've got to respect that. And I just think that anchovies are a good analogy because it's something you got to deal with. And if you avoid it and you just want to not deal with it, then there's consequences. So you just look at ChatGPT, right? I'll use them as an example. And just yesterday, I don't know if they got hacked or whatever, but there's some controversy right now because they were mixing the chat histories of people. One person was able to view another person's chat history, and that's very dangerous. I don't know if it was a hack or just some kind of thing in their code, but now this company that was going like crazy and the technology is going like crazy because the impression that they were hacked, whether it's true or not, is really a big concern for them. So I'd say that they should have had anchovies on their pizza and embraced it like I do. So I'd say anchovies. There's a long answer to say I don't care for them, but I got to deal with them.
It's like the book, eat the frog first, right? I mean, you start every day by eating the frog. So you got to do it.
Got to eat the frog. That's right.
Yeah, I'm one of those weird people who likes anchovies on my pizza.
Well, there you go. See, it takes all kinds, right? And one size doesn't fit all, especially for cybersecurity. You just can't go in and say, hey, this is my encryption, this is my blockchain, this is my multi-factor authentication. You got to deal with different environments, and there's existing systems and there's existing people. So, it's pizzas, right? I don't know how many different variations of pizzas you can get, but there's probably millions with all the different toppings and the different crusts and all this kind of stuff. So it's like a building block. And John, to your point, right? You got to have a framework for cybersecurity. So pineapples on pizza is a very good analogy.
Well, thank you. So, Kevin, what in your chief excitement role, what keeps you up at night? What problems are you seeing in the industry?
Well, I use ChatGPT as an example. They got hundreds of $millions or like a big overnight sensation. But what worries me is that people like this, in their zest to get their product to market or solve a problem, they discount cybersecurity. I'm not picking on them, but it's in the news, right? if you don't take it seriously, it could just ruin everything that they've been working for. It's just a huge concern, and that does keep me up at night. That if I build P3 to a company that's growing and growing, and I'm not paying attention to cybersecurity, one little mistake, right? One little open firewall port or one little data that's not encrypted or redacted could be catastrophic to my business. And, that keeps me personally up at night, but it also keeps me up at night on behalf of my customers, because you know what? They're trying to run a business, and they don't have to be or shouldn't be cybersecurity experts. So they rely on, companies like P3ID or other companies to come in and help them. And if companies aren't sincerely helping them and, reviewing your security policies and always checking systems, checking people, that's concerning. So you don't want to work so hard, John, to build a beautiful business and just have it go away or be discounted because they can't trust you. Now when people go to ChatGPT, they were giving very sensitive information because they were saying, hey, I need to build a software product with these kind of attributes. And guess what? Now that data could have been potentially shared with other people, and that data is out there. And now they have that perspective. If I go there today, like today, when I went there, I had this kind of in the back of my mind, oh, should I put it in there or not? Right. So there's companies like that. There's Equifax, that their breach was 15 years ago, probably. I forget how long ago, but I still think of that breach to this day when I hear Equifax. So you got to really be careful with this stuff, because it's your reputation, it's your business, it's trusting, customers got to trust you. So that's what keeps me up at night for sure, is that just, you don't want to let everything get ruined by just overlooking something. So cybersecurity's got to be at the top. It's not just a checkbox. It's one of the most important things.
We completely agree with that.
We used to refer to at least some of the security assessments that we had seen done, and this, the company shall remain nameless, but call it checkbox theater, right? So just ticking a checkbox is not enough. You need to go actually take a look at it, make sure it works, and is enforcement happening and those sorts of things. I think this is I should say very similar to maybe protection at a concert, right? Is that gate locked? Does that mean somebody's got to go check to make sure that you don't have a bunch of people, running into a ball game, or at least through what essentially was you think was a protected gateway or barrier. But when you get into things like artificial intelligence, like ChatGPT, you don't even know what's happening. So, like you mentioned, artificial ethics that are built into such a tool may not be wanted by let's call them the dark web side of the home, of the digital deviants and that are lurking amongst what essentially are the tunneled environments that they call the dark web. So
yeah, it's true. Security, you hear it often, but people really kind of appreciate it. It's a shared responsibility, right? So like in your example of going to a concert, right? You got to still watch your surroundings, but you have to have trust that the gates are being monitored and all that kind of stuff, and people are checked as they come in. So somebody takes that responsibility, but then you still got to be careful of protecting yourself too. So yeah, and then when it comes to AI, for example, and it's not just a security related thing, but I've always heard that being very transparent in your code is a good thing, because that way any kind of security concerns or privacy concerns are addressed, because maybe not the actual code itself, but the way that they develop their AI models should be disclosed. And I've always heard that's a good thing. And I've heard, from like Intel, they use a certain type of encryption that was open source, and they just said, we use open source. We want people to know about it because we want to be transparent about our security. So yes, absolutely.
The transparency it's always appreciated when organizations say they're transparent, but if you don't know what's going on within your own code, things can get out of control. I see a future of people saying, hey, I just got to see Michael Jackson live. He just performed. online in this virtual meeting, like somebody who's younger who doesn't even know that Michael Jackson passed away some time ago, and all done with what essentially are AI technologies. So this is potentially our future, and so being able to distinguish what's real versus what is not might get a little muddy as the AI advances. But a poignant note: years ago, I think 5-6 years ago, I attended a conference. And there was a scientist who was researching AI, and she made it very clear. I do not recall her name, but she made it very clear as a researcher that AI is about as smart as an earthworm. It's got ways to go. We're probably 20 years away before it is intelligent enough to be as smart as a German Shepherd. So it's still, essentially, and that's going to be a long journey of what are going to be mistakes and catastrophes. So the future looks bright, but probably, or at least from a Chat GPT perspective, we've got to watch what's going on. So we'll see.
It is. It's a very exciting time, but we need to consider the implications of it because it can learn so fast, right? So, and like any good technology, it could be abused for nefarious purposes. So yeah, we need to consider the implications, especially around, to your point, right? What do we know what's real? These deep fakes, like you're saying, right? We could run an AI model and put somebody on TV and it looks like they're saying exactly what you think they're, it's coming out of the words out of their mouth, but it's not. So how do we do that? Right. So like those kind of deep fakes need to maybe have some kind of digital signature that we know our TV decrypts it and says, this is authentic video, or some kind of crazy thing like that. But that's where we're going. That's, ChatGPT is a good example of like exposing something very cool to the masses. And there's all kinds of different use cases for it, which is wonderful. But there's also kinds of, a lot of things need to be considered about it instead of it can't just be the Wild West because then, like I said, it could be abused and whatnot. So, yeah, it's exciting times, but keep you guys in business for sure.
So, Kevin, what's your biggest challenges when you're meeting regulatory requirements today?
So, staying abreast of these. I mean, this is our business, but they're always coming out of the woodwork, and it's hard to stay on top of them. So, really, like understanding the requirements is one thing, right? And then applying the technologies to do that. And I'll give you one example. CCPA, I live in California, and the California Consumer Protection Act. So if you go to the California DMV and ask for your 60-day, has anybody accessed my records in 60 days? They're supposed to give you some kind of report, I think, within 24 hours. But can that happen? I don't know. And if I ask them to really delete my data, does that really happen? And that's the state of California, right? We have tons of technology resources. So how can even somebody with state of California like stay on top of all these regulations and all these kind of things? So it's hard to stay abreast. They're always coming out with regulations and compliances that want to help data privacy, but it's hard to stay on top of it. So I can't imagine a business that doesn't focus on this, how they can stay ahead. So people that freely share information and have webinars and are sincerely trying to educate the market, I really give them kudos because it's hard. It really is. So that's the challenge for us. I'm sure it's a challenge for other businesses.
I think everybody struggles with it at this point. I mean, especially just keeping up with the different laws and everything else that are going on. So it's a common thing that we hear.
Yeah, and I don't think you jump into just deploying technology, right? You got to start with a framework, right? Because if you start putting technologies together that are incompatible or don't have a support plan or aren't implemented properly, then what do? You create a bigger mess. So I say you step back, get a plan, get a framework, because in cybersecurity, sometimes it's not even about the technology. Oftentimes it's not about the technology itself. It's about people, right? Governance of people. Who has access to the data physically? Who has training? Is your data segregated the right way? Is it encrypted the right way? So there's all kinds of considerations outside of just technology. And so it takes a really well thought out framework before you start implementing technology like crazy.
So tell me, what solutions have you developed with P3ID to help with this?
Mm-hmm. So we're in the business process business, so we're a business process automation company that helps companies be more efficient. We started layering all these cybersecurity technologies on. So the first one we did was just document encryption. So you capture a document and they just encrypt it, and not just encrypt it in one place. We fragment the files, we encrypt each chunk, and we scatter the files in a distributed file system. Like you put 40% on Amazon and 20% on Google and the other 40% on your premise. So it's in 3 storage targets, and every chunk is encrypted, and you got to decrypt it. So the odds of getting that. So encryption's number one. Of course, authentication, single sign-on, multi-factor authentication with biometrics, even a third form or fourth form of authentication, because usernames and passwords aren't good enough. So that's cool. Firewall ports to be able to offer services like authentication service was without opening a NAT firewall inbound port. So our technology can actually make an outbound request to what we call a request collector that's collecting authentication requests. And then you could still make an authentication request without opening port 389 or 636 on your firewall. So those are a couple of things: encryption, multi-factor authentication, and then firewall ports closed. We're also getting into blockchain. So blockchain is another way, like I mentioned, the distributed storage, but also document authenticity. Like I was just talking about deepfakes with videos, but you can also provide a blockchain hash with the scanned image or the captured image, and you could say, hey, is this an authentic document or not? So there's a couple things we're working on. We're also working on, John, I know this is a long-winded answer, but this is important too. Everybody's kind of talking about zero trust networks now. So we're implementing, because we work with people, we're implementing all kinds of zero trust kind of architectures, because you can't just trust a system to system or human to system kind of by default. It's got to be by default, it's not trusted. So how do you provide authentication? So we're doing all kinds of crazy things to provide the authentication. And then we have some encryption expertise on staff. So we're actually inventing kind of different encryption algorithms.
Almost seems like this industry and security, and we've been through iterations, right? From there always appears to be some kind of a buzzword, and zero trust is, if you've been in the industry, you immediately know what it means, but the general public probably does not. But I do wonder about, with artificial intelligence, are we headed to a future where the concept of not trusting anything at that moment becomes almost like, and if you've seen the movie Minority Report, where you can actually predict when somebody is going to be malicious in their activities before they do it. So these kind of Hollywood type scenarios, which are grandiose and will really make you overthink something if you're not careful. So with that side note, but there is a lot of research happening right now on being able to do predictive technologies, and there's a lot of applications for it. But predictive cybersecurity hacks, or someone who might become a hacker that you catch 6 months before they go on the wrong path based on their behaviors and AI models. Is that the future that we're headed for? Is what I often ask. And for somebody that's collecting thousands of documents, and in terms of document, my apologies if I butcher it, but document collection or scanning. But I imagine that there has to be some predictive analysis happening in the industry already, so kind of where to put a document. And you get 12, 14, 16 documents, you realize, hey, these are all this category, so we think the rest of them are going to be the same. Yeah. So is that happening?
Yeah. So George, you kind of nailed it, right? Kind of what we've been doing in the past is like DLP, data loss protection, or data leak protection. So DLP, so you could at the firewall, you can review the documents coming in and going. So if you see all of a sudden documents are going out with social security numbers from an accounting person, right? Why do they have social security numbers? Maybe an HR person, that's reasonable, but all of a sudden there's some. So we do kind of have that kind of brute force, kind of at the firewall DLP kind of protection, but it's too late by that time, right? It's catching it. So if we can apply an AI model, and you nailed it, is like, can we like predict kind of possibilities, not based on historical events, but some kind of other kind of patterns? And I don't know what that is, right? It's still early days, but if you can detect a potential breach before it even happens, that's huge. And that's where like Equifax got to clean up stuff, and FedEx had a breach. They're having to clean up stuff after the data breach. But if you could save even one potential data breach, I think that's a really good application for AI for sure. And I think smart people that think maybe like ethical hackers that think like hackers and can create these kind of models and test and see and learn, with machine learning, not just AI, but machine learning too. So it learns and gets smarter over time. And like you said, Minority Report, it has to be the future, right? It really has to be, and we have to embrace the technology. And if you use it for the right purposes, it can really solve a lot of problems, because machines can think a lot faster than we can. But you're right? They're kind of just dumb machines, right? They're still just binary. They're zeros and ones. That's all they are. You know what? And they're trained by humans. They just don't learn on their own, and they have to be fed a lot of data oftentimes, and they need to see patterns, but they can detect patterns. So I think that's a good use of AI, is to create models that can prevent data breaches.
I just hope it's better than my predictive text on my cell phone.
Yeah.
Before we go to Minority Report and that part, we have a long ways to go, because it gets it wrong about more than half the time. So, thanks, Kevin. So tell us, what events do you go to, and where can people learn more about this?
Yeah, so there's a couple events I love to go to. So the first one is called the AIM event. It's Association for Information Managers. And to George's point, managing documents, managing information, managing databases. So that's what we do. We organize it. We assign policies to it and rights to it. So the AIM shows, the website's aiim.org. And the event's in New Orleans this year in April, as a matter of fact. So that's a good one. There's also records management. It's called ARMA. ARMA. It's an Association for Records Managers Association. So arma.org. And then there's also a small event that I go to called the Twain Direct Developers Day. And this is for people that are actually coding digital transformation solutions. So AIM, ARMA, and then Twain Direct Developers Day. Those are three events I like.
Excellent.
I say, what kind of folks might we find at one of these conferences? Are they mostly technical, or is there a combination of
I'd say AIM and ARMA are not technical people. They're mostly the people actually managing the information. So there'll be people from NARA, National Records. There'll be people from county governments, state governments, federal governments. There'll be people from school districts. So it's basically the people in charge for managing information, and not personal, but businesses, small businesses and big enterprise businesses. So those people that have this kind of pain, right? They need to collect data, they need to organize data, they need to index data, and they need to secure data. So they're usually not security experts. They're usually a records manager type that knows how to, collect the stuff, but they're not focused on security at the top of their list.
Thanks for that, because I think a lot of the events that are available to businesses or even the general public, they tend to cater more towards the technical community, if it's technical in nature in any way, shape, or form. And I do prefer the events that are attended by normal humans solving simple problems, because ultimately the technologists are building their widgets to what essentially is necessary in the market. But who am I to judge from the perspective of a conference? Because sometimes I've gone thinking there's going to be a bunch of technical people, and you end up with a completely different crowd. So
Yeah, I was at Developers Week a couple weeks ago, and it was a really great event. I mean, I loved all the vendors and stuff, but everybody's technology was the greatest thing since sliced bread, and all this, and it was like, okay, I'm tired of hearing about low code, no code. I'm tired of hearing about Kubernetes. How can I really apply it in my business, right? So these events that I'm talking about, AIM and ARMA, these are really like business people that have real business problems, and they've solved a lot of these problems, but they're always looking for the next, and they need help. They know they need help in certain areas, and cybersecurity, like I said, isn't, those shows aren't for that kind of thing. They're about business process efficiency and, applying certain rights and governance, risk reduction. So those kind of things. So cybersecurity is a part of it, but it's not the priority thing, the main priority for those kind of groups. Those are both really great events. They're not like massive Comdex events. They're small. They're a couple hundred people, maybe thousands, but they're not giant. They're always good. You can get good conversations with people. So I'd encourage both of those for anybody interested.
Cool. Thank you. That's a great feedback. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
So Kevin, are there any books that you'd like to recommend to our audience?
Yes. There's 3 that really hit home for me. So first one was a Net Promoter Score. So that's basically about, the perception of your company, right? Do they like your product? Do they like your services? Do you like their people? So if you get like I think it's on a 1 to 10 scale. If you get like an 88 out of 10, that's pretty good, but you always want to strive for the best. And some companies have terrible Net Promoter Scores because, they don't answer the phone. They don't have good technology. So Net Promoter Scores, definitely one. Next one is a Blue Ocean Strategy. And I love that. Like, why go to the red oceans and fight where it's like so difficult? So, and I'll just take my business, right? There's a lot of companies that do business process automation or digital transformation. There's a lot of companies that do that, and they do it very good. So when I started P3ID, I said, we're going to have a unique spin because we're going to focus on cybersecurity. And that's our uniqueness. So I went to Blue Ocean, and yeah, I know business process automation and information management, but as everything moves to the cloud, you need all these kind of cybersecurity things. So that's where that big long list of encryption and multi-factor authentication of blockchain, all these kind of things. That's why we put it in. So Blue Ocean Strategy is my second one. And then one I just finished was Venture Deals. And that's just about business and raising money and the business side of stuff. So any entrepreneur, whether you're raising money or not, you always got to be thinking about that. So I would suggest Venture Deals is a book that's written to real people, to George point. Like, you love to talk to people, and they actually talk from the VC's perspective and then the entrepreneur's perspective, and you get really good insights. So Venture Deals is a good book to read too.
So Kevin, here's the other big question for you is, what excites you about the future?
Well, we've talked about it a lot, but I love the ChatGPT. A part of my history was using natural language processing before it was a fad. Many years ago, I was selling NLP technologies, and it was called natural language understanding, natural language processing. And then I saw, Alexa Home, Google Home. So I think voice assist is here to stay, right? My wife talks to our Alexa machines and does grocery shopping all the time. And I talk to my car, and, I'm starting to talk to my appliances just like they're people, right? They're just a person. So I think voice is very exciting. I still think the blockchain is people are figuring it out. So this all the crypto stuff that's going on, like, it's given it a bad rap, but we don't focus on that. We focus on blockchain as a distributed ledger, right? And the use cases and the applications around that are really cool. Like one I mentioned was document authenticity in our business, right? Because you could forge an invoice, you could forge a mortgage title. How can you prove that this is an authentic document? You could do that through blockchain. So I'd like to take blockchain and just make it a simple thing for people to understand and provide real value. So I think voice, I think blockchain, and I think the cloud's, just to summarize, John, I think the cloud's still in its infancy. I think, it's been confusing for a lot of people that everybody, like a couple of years ago, they were transitioning everything to the cloud, right? And then they found, well, it's not, they're spending a lot of money in the cloud when it was supposed to save money. Then they started bringing some workflows back. So I think overall, there'll be a hybrid world. and the cloud still is like in the early innings. Mark Benioff from Salesforce, he famously said, about the cloud, we're in the early innings of the cloud. And I still think we're there. We're not even scratching the surface of what can be done. But, so I think to summarize, I think voice control, I think blockchain, and I think the cloud are just three exciting things for me.
Maybe we should change it from a cloud to a tide, because it kind of comes in and goes out. As the oceans rise, it keeps coming in further and further, I guess. A new analogy.
Yeah, I think John is right. I think, we used to call it hosting and now they call it cloud. Tide is next. Or is there some unique term that will evolve as, I know some people that would essentially say is, my cloud is just, all the computers that I've hacked. So that's my cloud. Ultimately, what's really changed? And that's always the challenge. And maybe there are technical people that are better at answering certain parts of that question. I don't think it's a single person answer. I think it's we want to call them the subject matter experts. And networking will have a different answer than the subject matter experts in development, right? So that if you're writing code and how to make it go faster, easier. In 2 years, ChatGPT will writing my code for me. I heard somebody say once. So
yeah, I love it, George. And that's one of the trends that I kind of haven't mentioned, but low code, no code. Like go to ChatGPT and say, hey, write me a front end application in Node.js and make sure it's compliant with AWS. I could hack a code together for you. Maybe it might not work, but with a little massaging, hey, you've got 80% done. So that's applying all kinds of things that we've been talking about, the low code, no code, the cloud, and kind of voice control chat all together. And so this merger, this confluence of these different mega trends, if people think through strategically and apply it, then it's really great time. It really, really is. It's not like the old, it's not even 10 years ago where there wasn't a lot of good web API cloud services, there wasn't API systems, there wasn't APIs developed, there wasn't all these cool things coming around. So yeah, we can create incredible applications. Early innings, it's a great time. I
believe that there are lots of opportunities that still, remain out there that somebody, at least my age anyway, who's, lived most of their life. Let's pretend they're going to live to be 100. I'm halfway there, but who is looking back and saying, wow, yeah, that no code, low code. I think I heard that before in the 90s from a developer. And he said, look at this great, web development application. It's no code, or low code, and it's wonderful. And, I think things just change in our minds sometimes, but how it evolves and like something that's really monumentally different you could argue that, code automation is coming. And for those of you, I just have to go back to the movie buff. Is Cyberdyne really coming and Terminator movie will come to fruition? We don't know for certain. But what we do know is that there's a lot of work to be done. Those that are behind are probably where the security vulnerabilities will emerge, right? So not everybody goes at the same speed. So, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I got to say that low code, no code is way better than WYSIWYG, which what you see is what you get coding, right? That was our old term. So there, I'm
bring back memories, John. That really brought back memories.
That's why the beard is white.
So I was trying to avoid using that word specifically, John, but
hey, all for the search engines, man. Anyways, so tell us, how do you get here, Kevin? I mean, how do you become the document expert, the document master that you are, and what journey led you here?
I'll tell you honestly, John and George, because you're nice guys, and pineapple on pizza is like a fun thing to do. So there isn't really magic to what my success. I simplified things. So my kind of forte, my best quality is being a product manager. And I was frustrated because I had a very advanced product and I wasn't very successful with it. So what I did was simplify the message in a way that people can understand. Sometimes technology people love to get wrapped around the axle and tell about the feeds and speeds and all the specs of their technology. And that's great, right? But how do people really use it? What's the value add? What's the benefit? So I finally just said, okay, what's the pain? So I went to customers and I listened to them. And I listened very well, and I have a good skill of listening. So what I did was, like, one of my customers was AutoNation. I went to AutoNation and I listened to him. The guy gave me the time of day and he said, blah, blah, blah. And he kind of articulated some of the problems that he knew. And then he couldn't quite understand the other problems. And I said, oh, what about this? What about that? And we came to a solution. So and that was a massive deal. And I learned from it. I said, oh, wow, when you listen to the customers, they'll tell you as much as they got a problem, right? So simplify the message. Don't confuse the customer. Be very sincere about trying to help them and solve their pain and their problem. And guess what? It will come back to you, but don't expect that. Just be fair. Like I said earlier, people that are doing education about cybersecurity, I put them on another pedestal because they're doing what's good for the industry and they're trying to drive more understanding because it's confusing and it's hard. So simplicity, that's where P3's coming in. We want to make advanced technology very simple. So like when you want to use our solutions, you could talk to them. You could say, hey, I want to scan this document to John and make sure it's routed over to George and make sure that all the PII data is redacted. So you could just talk to it. And that's very simple, but use a lot of technology behind the scenes to do something. So I think the magic, John, is just simplicity. Let's just be more simple and let's put yourself in the customer's position. Don't confuse them. Just stop it. I hate vendors that do that. And they try to confuse them to a point and they're like, oh, I don't know what vendor A, B, C, I can't make a difference of these people. So I'm not going to make a decision, right? Because I can't. So somebody that comes in and kind of offers a consultative kind of attitude and helps the customer, that's the secret. But a lot of people won't do it, right? They want to sell, and not listen. And I don't think I think that the customer's empowered more than ever. They could do internet research. They can download the software. They could try it, give free trials. So guess who's empowered? The customer. So vendors that have this kind of selfish kind of attitude, they're going to lose. So the big stack is not the way to go anymore.
Agreed. So, but tell us about your history. I mean, where did you specifically come from?
So I've kind of risen the ranks. So I started in the warehouse. This was a beautiful experience. I got to learn I got to learn this part number goes with this partner, with this partner. A pack list would have the configuration. So I learned the part numbers. I kind of memorized them. So I started there. And then I went to a hardware company, a document scanning company. And that's where I was a product manager. I learned the hard way. I remember I said I wasn't successful at first, but I said, okay, I got this advanced technology. How do I be successful? So I went to AutoNation and I listened and we won. And then I went to a software company. That's where I was selling the natural language processing software. So I got the hardware, software. And then a couple of years ago, I said, hey, I'm talking about all this stuff. I'm talking about cloud and blockchain security. I'm blogging about it. I'm just trying to educate people sincerely, So I said, okay, I'm going to start my company. And that's what we did. And I said, if I can't, eat my own dog food, then who else is going to do it? So I did it. And I'm very grateful for all the friendships and partnerships. And, we haven't had to spend money on marketing yet. It's all been just word of mouth and, having a high net promoter score personally has helped a lot because I just say, hey, so-and-so, can we do business? And then all of a sudden it becomes business, right? We can do the terms and we figure it out, but it's been really good. So that's a long story, John, that people that start in warehouses or digging ditches, there's an upward path in your career path. And I encourage everybody to always strive to get better and bigger.
I'm with you on that. I think there's a number of things that a number of things you can do when you're younger that, pay off exponentially as you get older.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the equation. So as you kind of go back and you look at your younger self as, you're giving yourself some advice. that's always I always look back and say, make sure you take that theater class in high school. Don't miss that theater class in high school. It was important. So I'm curious, what was your advice to yourself, as a young man, or as a that pivotal college years when maybe you're figuring out why you decided to major in natural resources management like I did, because that was not a fit for me. So,
well, I think you got to have good character and be a trustworthy person. I think that's a good quality that I have, and my dad and mom instilled that on me. So that's number one. But a lesson that I've learned, and it's been actually recently, is that although I'm a very trusting person in business, you have to be very kind of suspicious at times too. And I would say that sometimes I was a little bit too trusting, and I got burned a few times, right? So I would still say you got to be a sensible business person. And, not everybody's out for your best interest too, right? And you got to look out for your employees. You got to look out for your shareholders. You got to look out. So if people are not a culture fit for you, then they shouldn't be part of your company. And I've had good salespeople. They're really good salespeople, but they're not a culture fit. And we had to split ways, right? No hard feelings. But if you're not getting along with the other people, then you can't be part of our company. And P3ID, the first P in P3 is for people, process, and policy. And I will absolutely enforce that. So, George, to answer your question, I think you have to be a kind person, but also you got to be a good business person too, because there's a lot of snakes out there, not just in the AI world, but just in general. So that's kind of the advice I would give to my younger self, is that be trusting, but also also verify as well.
Trust but verify. Yeah, I think we all have heard that. So Kevin, what do you do outside of work? What's your passions? What fun things?
Well, I'm a workaholic, so I don't mind working, but I do need to take a break. And when I do, I love to spend time. I've got 2 dogs, a wife, and 3 cats. So I'm a very big animal lover. They're all adopted and rehomed, so we love them all. And spending time with them is basically a full-time job. We don't travel much, so I just like to work. I really do. There's so much stuff to learn and different kinds of technologies that are available to try. I'm so grateful that for open source software, I got my learning with Apache, MySQL, PHP, all those kind of tools. ChatGPT is open source, right? I'm even creating my own ChatGPT kind of language models using their open source software. It's really, I use my websites or WordPress. It's all open source software. So I like to tinker with technology and spend time with my animals. Those are kind of 2 things. And then I don't watch much TV, but my wife's a foodie. So by default, I get to watch like the Food Network and all these kind of YouTube cook at home kind of shows. So they're always fun to watch those. That's about my life: technology, animals, and food.
Sounds like a good life to me.
Yes.
So Kevin, where can people find you?
So I'm easy to find. You can go to our website. It's p3idtech.com. It's P and then the number 3 idtech.com. And ID, by the way, is for intelligent data. So you can find me there. I'm easily available on LinkedIn. Just put in Kevin Neal and P3ID. You can find me, connect with me, or my email address, kneal@p3idtech. Send me an email. Let me know what you're up to. I love working with other entrepreneurs. I love working with other businesses. There's always this build versus buy thing. And I know we cannot build everything on our own. So we want to partner with good companies that offer services, offer technologies, have expertise, and do referral kind of business. So I think the primary place is go to our website. You can find me there. But I love to have conversations like this. It's always fun.
Well, we absolutely appreciate having you, and it's very insightful, and your ideas definitely coincide with some of the things that we've built over the years. So And I'd like to thank you very much, Neal, Kevin, for being part of this. And then to our audience, I'd like to thank you for listening. If you've learned something today or laughed, tell someone about the podcast. If you haven't laughed, then don't tell anybody, but go ahead and tell them that you didn't laugh and they should listen to it too. Anyways, there it is. It's been another great episode of Pineapple on Pizza with your hosts, John and George. We'll see you next time. And again, thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, John and George. Take care.
Thank you all for joining another great episode of Pineapple on Pizza. You can find show notes, links, and resources by visiting omnistruct.com/blog. And a huge thank you to all who are preventatively protecting organizations from cyber threats.